Please text me at least in the chat box. Mahima
సార్
Arya.
వినపడుతుంది సార్.
Am I audible?
ఎస్ సార్.
NK, your voice is not audible. Please text me in the chat box. Okay, thank you. So this is Chiranjeevi, lecturer in political science. Today we are going to discuss our course title for the subject of political science in the part of 6th semester. Our course title is Contemporary International Relations. It's a elective course. In this course, we have 5 chapters. Previously, we have discussed about another paper called International Relations. So, in the part of that area, we have this course, Contemporary International Relations. So, in this contemporary political international relations, we have the chapter 1 is international political economy. In this international political economies area, we are going to discuss about international economic cooperation and global economic and trade organizations, and also multinational corporations, and also the concept of globalizations. So for this course, we have 8 classes. So maximum we will try to conclude at least maximum chapters in our syllabus. So okay, so here we have the first chapter is international economic cooperations. In this chapter we have syllabus about international economic cooperation meaning and increased global interdependence and motivations for integration and types of integration, and also north-south dialogue and south-south cooperation. These all are about international economic relationship between the nations across the world. So, as we discussed, after the establishment of United Nations organizations, the international relations has been changed a lot in the area of trade, commerce, science and technology, and arms race and power politics also. After the establishment of United Nations organization, many of the nations in the world got from independence from their colonial rulers. After that, they become independence and they brought an individual independent foreign policy system, and also they are maintaining international relations with all the nations in the world with the support of United Nations organization. So here in the part of international economic cooperation, the development of economic relationship between the individual nations and all the group of nations in the world, they got free trade system and a common imports and exports system between the nations after the establishment of World Trade Organizations. So also United Nations supports to encourage developing nations to develop so easily with the support of already developed nations. So almost after the ending of the World War II, many of the nations became independent from the colonial rulers, and that nations all are belong to developing category. So including India also, we are also got independence after the Second World War in 1947. Like India, many other nations also fighting for their development with the support of all the developed nations, and such international organizations like United Nations Organization and World Trade Organization, International Monetary Fund, and also there is World Bank, that is IBRD, International Bank for reconstruction and development also supports for the poor and developing nations. So, with for the development of economy of those who are in need of development. So, here global, if we discuss about this international economic cooperation, the development of varied economic, scientific, as well as technological relationship between individual countries and among groups of countries based on the principles of equality, independence, and mutual advantage is known as international economic cooperation. Here, group of countries means after the establishment of United Nations organization, like many regional organizations also established for the purpose of regional cooperation between the neighboring nations, like SARC is there, ASEAN is there, G15, G7 group of nations, G15, G20, and also African Union is there, European Union is there. Like this, all the regional organizations are especially established for the purpose of regional cooperation between the within the region member states. So the relationship between these uh, nations for the empowerment of their economy and development. So the after this international economic cooperation established between these organization, many international organizations like World Trade Organization, International Monetary Fund, and also IBRD, that is World Bank, also established for the purpose of this free trade system. So many improvements and communications facilitated by internet and mobile technology, communication system between the people in different countries. As we discussed, many international companies or corporations also established their branches in other countries. That what we called it as MNCs, multinational corporations. So motivations for integration also established for the purpose of this economic integration. Firstly, the improvements in the factors of production, services, and transport and communication technology have considerably reduced the costs of these entities. So here we have to know about the regional cooperation or international cooperation process. Many countries like developed or developing nations have been reduced their tax system in the process of imports and exports, and also in the field of trade system. So secondly, the societies and individuals have taken advantage of the opportunities that are provided by the declining cost of factors of production, transport, and communication for facilitating economic integration. So thirdly, the public policies have significantly influenced the pace and character of the economic integration, although not always in the direction increasing it. So, in the process of this international economic cooperation, many nations, many countries also participated in this integration system for the purpose of free trade system. So if we discuss about this integration system, there are five types of integrations also there in economic integration. So if we classified into five levels, one is free trade area, and the second one is custom union, third one is common market, fourth one is economic union, that is single market, and the last one political union. So if we discuss about free trade area means the relationship between the nations in the world with within the trade system. There is no taxes, there is no import tax, or there is no export tax between their trade system. After their policy making, they have memorandum of understanding between these trade system. So free trade areas are created as a result of agreements between two or more countries with an intention to create economic cooperation among them, to come to an agreement on each other terms trading. So as we discussed, even India also agreements done with many neighboring states, and also like many developed nations like United States of America, Britain, China. We are all having economic relationship with all the nations in the world. So they result in opening new markets, invite new investments, and increase in GDP. So as we as a part of our foreign policy system, and also our international relations with other nations, we have invited foreign direct investments to put investments in our nation. So after this system, many MNCs arrived India and established their branches in India and increased um, our GDP rate, and also they created employment for the unemployed youth in our country. In the free trade agreement, the parties specially identify the tariffs and the duties that are to be imposed on member countries with regard to the exports and imports. If we take an example of NAFTA, that is free trade system between the United States, Switzerland, and Mexico. If we discuss about the advantages of free trade system, free trade areas increased economic growth between the nations. So the free trade agreements result in increased economic growth for the member states, and also more dynamic business climate. In free trade area, both industries, businesses face a lot of competition, and as a result they come up with good business practices and become globally competitive. And also in this process of free trade system, all the member states are inviting foreign direct investments in their countries. So foreign investments readily comes into the free trade areas, and it gives financial boost to the domestic businesses and local industries and helps for their development. Technology transfer also possible in this free trade area. So the multinational partners also provide local companies the cutting edge technologies that are badly required by them. If we discuss about disadvantages in this free trade system, increased job outsourcing happens because the companies from one country expand to other member countries where the protection is less. They take the jobs along with them. Theft of intellectual property, crowd out domestic industries, poor working conditions, degradation of natural resources. Most of the emerging market economies are devoid of appropriate environmental protections. As a result, the corporations from the developed countries take advantages of this, leading unsustainable exploitation of natural resources, including minerals and forest wealth. So, uh, as part of this free trade system, many advantages and disadvantages also there for the both levels in international economic cooperation. So, if we discuss about customs union, a customs union is an agreement which is created and by the two or more countries in a neighborhood with the objective to do away with trade barriers and abolish or reduce the custom duties and eliminate the quotas in trade related aspects. Neighborhood means like we are having neighbors like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, like that. Every country has its own neighbors. So the customs union is an agreement between two or more countries within their neighborhood system. So in a customs union, a common external tariff is imposed on the goods that are imported from the non-member states of the union. So these non-member states have to make a single payment duty fee when they trade with the member states in a customs union. They can trade freely with no added tariffs once inside the customs union. So purpose of this customs union is to enable the member states trade freely with one another. So as we discussed, many regional organizations are especially established for these purpose only. Apart from fostering economic cooperation among the member states, it facilitates seamless trade among them by removing all barriers. However, the member states do not enjoy the luxury of forming their own trade deals in a customs union. The countries in a customs union usually alter their economic policies for maximizing their gain from the membership in the union. If we discuss about the advantages of this customs union, um, these customs union increase in economic integration and trade flows. It enhances the trade and foreign direct investments, that is FDIs, and enables the creation of the goods and services that the consumer wants. And also, the customs union creates a trade system. The customs union also facilitates trade creation. The trade creation happens when the more efficient members of a customs union sell their goods to the less efficient members of the same entity, which will result in better allocation of resources. And also, it creates a trade diversion also. Um, and if we discuss about disadvantages in this customs union, the loss of economic sovereignty is there with this customs union. In a customs union, the individual member states are not allowed to negotiate their own deals, and as a result, it leads to loss of economic sovereignty. It has to negotiate trade deals as a single entity, and also there will be sometimes there will not be a fair share of tariff revenues from for some countries in the customs union. So the difference between the differences will happen in this customs union in the process of distribution of tariff revenues, and also complexity of setting the tariff rate. The complexity of establishing applicable tariff rate is another common problem that is faced by the customs unions. The process, besides being costly, is also a time consuming. And also, we have a common market system in this free economic cooperation. A common market is a group formed by several countries through a formal agreement in which each member state adopts a common external tariff. Along with it, the member states also practice free trade and allow free movement of capital and labor into the common market. This arrangement regarding trade is made with an object of improving the economic benefits to all the member states of the common market. In a common market, all the barriers, including quotas and tariffs pertaining to the exporting and importing of goods and services among the member states of the common market, are removed. So, if we discuss about these benefits of a common market, free movement of people, goods, services, and capital, a common market is often treated to be a single market. And as a result, it allows the free movement of factors of production across the national borders without any hindrances. So, as we discussed, the regional cooperations also supports this regional common market system. So there is free movement of labor. So if we discuss about relationship between developing and developed nations, many labor people travel to developed nations for the employment. So in the process of this common market system, so efficiency in production also happen in this common market system. There are several disadvantages also there with this common market system. Less competitive countries are put a disadvantage in this common market. The less competitive countries are at a disadvantage because they cannot provide any subsidies or protection to the domestic industry. And also trade diversion. When efficient non-members are crowded out of the common market, trade diversion takes place. In addition to the, a country may witness lower wages if it faces an influx of migration of factors of production when the supply overtakes the demand. And also economic union also there An economic union also a kind of a trade bloc, which is a combination of customs union with the common market. The members of such economic grouping have common policies on freedom of movement of goods and services, and also product regulation, the factors of production, for example, labor and capital, along with the common external trade policy. When an economic union also has a unifying currency across its domain, then it becomes an economic and monetary union. The main objective behind establishing an economic union is to not only enhance economic efficiency but also to establish closer political and cultural bonds among the member states of grouping. For example, Central American Common Market, European Union, Eurasian Economic Union, Gulf Cooperative Council, these all are example of this economic union. There are several advantages are there with this economic union. Investments, the economic union has a stable financial situation because it leads to injecting a lot of funds for investment in underdeveloped areas and weaker economies, and also exchange of technology, products, and people. The economic union leads to barrier free exchange of goods, technology, and products among the all the member states. And also the economic union helps in lowering the prices in the member states of the union. It leads to reduction in duty tax and facilitates imports and exports. And also there are several disadvantages also there with this economic union. If we discuss, there are political, economic, cultural disadvantages are there. Economic union demands standardization of regulations within its area, and similarly, every country is not treated as an equal partner, and some countries can try to dominate and take control over others. Economic disadvantages means the economic union may lead to loss of economic independence, and the member states will be unable to give to priority to goods from their own country. And also it will also leads to brain drain because the better skilled and well educated people leave the country because they have better opportunities in the other countries of the economic union. As we discussed, many Indian people migrating to many developed nations like United States of America or many European countries. They are going for the employment and better opportunities, better salaries. So, if we discuss about the political union is a kind of a state which is a result of coming together of small states. The process of creating a big state from a group of smaller states is called unification. The individual states in the political union share a central government, and the union gets international recognition as a single political party. The political union may be brought into existence in many forms, and they are incorporating union, incorporating annexation, federal union. So, in an incorporating union, the creation of new state is done by dissolving entirely the former states into the new state. For example, Great Britain was created by the Acts of Union 1707 between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland. Incorporating annexation means a state or a group of states are dissolved and are united into an existing state whose legal existence continues. Federal union means in the federal union, the states place themselves under the new federal authority. However, their existence continues. It is only the federal state that is recognized in international law, although the federated states have an existence of their own in domestic law. For example, the confederal unions have existed in history like Canada, India, and the United States of America. And also there are mixed unions also there, federative annexation also there. If we discuss about the advantages of this political union, the political union helps to prevent wars by creating interdependency, keeps peace between the nations, and raises the standard of living among the all its citizens in their countries. And also the expenses on maintaining armies will come down considerably. It helps to strengthen the members economies through the reduction or removal of tariffs. Example, the political union allows for the free movement of citizens among the member countries, and lessens the importance of boundaries and eliminates the need for border control amongst the member nations. And also the movement of people allows for the spreading of different cultures and people, allowing for work opportunities along with the sense of belonging to the union. And also the political union helps to protect each other and at the same time assists in creating a strong defense in case of aggression from outsiders. There are several disadvantages also there. This political union decreases the importance of nations that tend to lose their identity and independence, and also it will result in cultural hybridization and can ultimately lead to the destruction of a nation's unique culture. The laws and regulations of political union do not fit into each country's situation perfectly. Political union can sometimes lead to suppression of some member states within the union, and also political unions can be undemocratic and will restrict the sovereignty of individual nations. So this is the international economic cooperation. So we have the concept of north-south dialogue. North and south generally refers to the directions. However, in this present context in our syllabus, the north and the south refers to the two diversions of the countries of the world basing on social, cultural, political, economic and general development. The term north is generally used to refer to the world's richest, industrialist and non-communist countries of the world like United States of America, Australia, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, and countries of Western Europe which have high per capita income. And on the other hand, the term south refers to the developing countries of the third world. Third world means after the ending of the Second World War, who got independence from the colonial rulers after the war, they will call it as third world nations. So that all are belongs to the category of south. So so the average per capita income of the people who inhabit these countries is quite low. The stark distinction between the developing and the developing nations of the third world was quite visible after the end of Second World War. The plight of the developing countries came to be universally recognized over a period of time. The developing countries are also referred to as third world countries. So here north-south dialogue refers to the discussions that have been conducted at various summits, conferences, negotiations, discussions, and meetings between the countries of the north and south with an intention to use the programs and agreements for addressing the inequalities between the two developmental blocks. The discussions held at the United Nations Security Council regarding this issue, the summit meetings of the G8 countries and the conferences of non-alignment movement typify the avenues of such dialogues where the countries of G8 and the developing countries held talks for solving some of the problems facing the developing countries or the South in general. So, if we discuss about the objectives of the North-South dialogue, the key objectives of North-South dialogue can be put into three major categories. One is issues related to assistance. So, In this concept, the developing countries are seeking financial assistance, technical assistance from the developed countries for achieving balanced regional growth and the removal of poverty. And the second one is issues related to trade. The developing countries have been seeking support from the developed countries for expanding opportunities for enlarging their exports and improve their export earnings for handling the problems of payment deficits and for achieving a steady growth. And third one is issues related to industrialization and technology. The developing countries are seeking advanced technologies from the developed countries and are also negotiating for possible shifting of the labor intensive industries of the developed countries to the third world countries. So, north south dialogue is there are gap between developed countries and developing countries grew sharper within the course of time, while a remarkable progress was witnessed with regard to the developed countries. The developing countries failed to witness any improvement in their economies. The developing countries attributed to state of affairs to the international economic order, which was established subsequent to the Second World War. The instruments of the international economic order, like the International Monetary Fund (IMF), General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade (GATT), and the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development (World Bank or IBRD), we will call it as IBRD or World Bank, are in favor of the developed countries and are doing great harm to the developing countries. So, the Bretton Woods structure that was created after the Second World War acted to the disadvantages of developing countries for the reason that it treated the developing countries on equal footing with the developed countries. So the World Bank was more interested and more focused on providing relief to the war-torn developed countries and took little care of the needs of the developing countries only afterwards. So, after the establishment of these international institutions like IMF, IBRD, the United Nations General Assembly in April, May 1974, at his sixth special sessions, called for the establishment of the new international economic order and approved the program of action for putting into implementation. So, the recognition for the creation of new international economic order acknowledged the fact that the existing international economic order was not catering to the requirements of the developing world and was in fact perpetuating and aggravating the existing inequalities, and that the old relationship of dependence and unequal exchange should be replaced by the new mechanism of interdependence. So this program of actions, which was supported to endorsed by the United Nations, was in very diverse areas like the primary commodities and raw materials, food, transportation, trade, the international monetary system, insurance, industrialization, development financing, activities of transnational corporations, transfer of technology, cooperation between the developing countries, and above all the role of the United Nations system. Though some of the industrialized countries and above all the role of the international nations refused to subscribe to the views of the new international economic order. A series of conferences were also held by the developing countries for giving a concrete shape to the proposals for the transformation of the new international economic order from rhetoric to the reality. In view of the growing demand from the developing countries, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution in 1979, which can be treated as a watershed in the struggle of the developing countries for the new international economic order. So, this resolution emphasized the necessity of conducting global talks within the framework of the United Nations on matters pertaining to raw materials, energy, trade, development, currency, and financial questions. It was also decided the Committee of the Whole of the United Nations General Assembly should act as a preparatory body for the global negotiations. However, the progress in this regard was not possible on the account of the differences between England and the United States of America and West Germany on matters related to procedure. At the same time, the United States of America did not want to give a wrong impression to the developing countries that it was against holding such talks because this could adversely affect the expansion of the multinational corporations of the United States of America in the developing countries. This ultimately culminated in the Cancun Summit meeting, which was held in 1981. So, if we discuss about the conflict between North and South group, the relationship between northern countries, especially the dominant east-west conflict, undoubtedly had an enormous impact on the relationship within the south, whereas some developing countries decided to cooperate with the Soviet Union in order to challenge the powerful states in the north. A majority of developing countries chose to be independent from the western as well as from the eastern bloc. So we have to remind the ideologies between these two, north and south. So as we discussed, the entire north belonged to almost capitalist ideology, which are, as we discussed, non-communist blocks. So the most of the south group adopted this communist and socialist ideology for their economy system. So in this international economic order, institutions like IBRD, World Trade Organizations, all are in the hands of developed nations such as United States of America, Britain, France, China. So they independently, they individually not take any action for the benefit of the developing nations. So we have South-South cooperation. So the developing countries are called in the South because most of the developing countries are located in the Southern Hemisphere. When these countries extend cooperation among themselves, it goes by the name South-South cooperation. Thus, the term South-South cooperation refers to the process of cooperation that is prevalent among the developing countries in political, economic, social, cultural, scientific, and technological areas. The South-South cooperation has been adopted by the non-alignment movement as the foundation principle for the achieving the dream of collective self-reliance among the developing nations of the world. So, this South-South cooperation refers to the broad framework of collaboration that has been established among the countries of the South in the economic, political, environmental, social, technical, and cultural fields. So, the cooperation can take place at bilateral, sub-regional, regional, or inter-regional domains. So, for meeting their developmental goals, the developing countries share their resources, skills, expertise, and knowledge through concerted efforts. So, the recent developments in the South-South cooperation have manifested in the forms of increased trade, enhanced flows of foreign direct investment, technology transfers, commitments towards regional integration, sharing of experts and solutions, and other forms of beneficial exchanges. So the main and most of the important objectives of South-South cooperation is improve self-reliance of developing countries by improving their creative capacity to find solution to their development problems, and strengthen and promote collective self-reliance among the developing countries by sharing, pooling, and using of their technical and other resources, and also create the necessary capacity among the developing countries for identifying, analyzing, and solving the main development issues. And also, they create new technological facilities and strengthen the existing ones in the developing countries for improving their capacity for absorbing and adapting new technologies and skills for meeting their development needs. And also, it enabling the developing countries for achieving a greater degree of participation in the worldwide economic activities and to expand the international cooperation for development. If we discuss about the basic elements in the South-South cooperation, is a common effort of the countries and the peoples of the South, and it must be viewed as an evidence of South-South unity and solidarity, and also as a strategy for self-reliance and for economic independence of the South, which is based on the solidarity and the common objectives of the South-South cooperation. So the countries in the South must drive the South-South cooperation and its agenda. And also, South-South cooperation should not be viewed as a replacement for North-South cooperation. Strengthening the South-South cooperation should not be treated as a measure for adjusting with the declining interest of the developed countries in providing assistance to the countries of the South. So, uh, entire the cooperation that is prevalent in the countries belonging to the South should not be evaluated and analyzed using the same yardsticks that are used in the measuring the North-South dialogue or relations. So the this South-South cooperation is a development agenda pertaining to the countries of South, which is based on the objectives, conditions, and premises that are specific to the political and historical context of the developing countries. And South-South cooperation is founded upon a genuine, a strong, and broad-based solidarity in partnership. It is based on a mutual respect for one another, mutual benefit, and complete equality. And also, it is endeavors for promoting action-oriented approach towards the development challenges, which will result in strengthened multilateralism. So, this South-South cooperation accords respect to the national sovereignty in the context of sharing of responsibility, and also for the common pursuit of broad development objectives, promotes the exchanges of best practices among the developing nations. South-South cooperation stresses on the importance of collective self-reliance of the developing nations. South-South cooperation seeks to enable developing countries to play a more active role in the international policy and decision-making process, and also the mechanisms and modalities for the promotion of South-South cooperation are founded on inter-regional, regional, sub-regional, and bilateral cooperation and integration along the multilateral cooperation. So this South-South cooperation refers to a broad framework of collaboration that has been established among the countries of South in the fields of economic, political, environmental, social, technical, and cultural fields. So the cooperation can take place at bilateral, sub-regional, regional, or inter-regional domains. So the most defining basic objective of this South-South cooperation is to encourage interdependence among the countries of the South, and to make them mutually supportive and contribute to the comprehensive objectives of international development. Besides it, the South-South cooperation also aims to foster self-reliance of developing countries by enhancing their creative capacity, strengthen and promote collective self-reliance among the developing countries, create the necessary capacity among the developing countries for identifying and analyzing the main development issues confronting their countries and formulating the appropriate strategies for addressing them. So, uh, these regional cooperations, regional organizations, and another international institutions are help for the uh, this type of developing nations. So uh, there is a widespread sense today. However, uh, many international organizations and regional organizations are mainly established for purpose of this economic and trade relationship between the neighboring states in the international scenario. So, the recent economic and diplomatic achievements of several key countries of the global south, and especially of China and the BRICS group more broadly, has given the impetus to increasing debate and consideration of the potentialities of a new phase of challenge or construction of alternatives to the hegemonic and neo-colonial politics of the global north. There has been a historically significant global shift in production and manufacturing from global north to global south, altering the economic geography of the world. So the tendency over the past several decades to greatly intensify the globalization of production, trade, financial flows was advocated primarily as a systematic solution to underlying structural problems of northern capital in the global political economy, including growth, productivity, and profitability. But these some same globalizing tendencies have also enhanced the historical potential of economic growth and the industrialization in the south. So, so in the by the 1980s, the third world debt crisis, the rise of neoliberalism has served the eclipse of new international economic order project. So the retreat of third world solidarity was given no clearer indication than at the 1992 UNCTAD summit in Cartagena, when UNCTAD dropped its demands for the adjustment of the international patent system to the developmental needs of the global south, and adopted a statement expressing the belief that the adoption of adequate and effective international patent protections and related efforts in the World Intellectual Property Organization and the GATT would facilitate technological transfers to the developing countries. Uh, so, World Trade Organization is there for this patent system. So the concept of dependency theory had been developed in Latin American scientists during 1960s, was influenced by earlier Marxist theories of imperialism, as well as by discussions which took place within the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America. So uh, this this concept is focus of which is usually reduced to the analysis of individual societies and states of the South. So, this theory, dependence theory, focuses on the relationship between the North and South, arguing that the actual situation of developing countries cannot be analyzed outside the history of external penetrations and interventions. So, another feature of independence theory is its focus on the specific history of colonialism, which distinguishes the countries of the north from the countries of the south. So, assuming that the unequal relationships and exchanges between north and south lead to global polarization and increasing poverty within the south, dependency theory calls for a delinking from the northern based institutions and for the launch of self-centered development strategy which concentrates on the needs of demands of the domestic populations. So this is our first chapter. Tomorrow we will meet again at 10:30 a.m. Thank you for your participation. I am concluding the session.